In this lesson, we will talk about three very important entities, which are the cells, dimensions, and text. So to illustrate the concept, let me first create, let's say, a line here, and then maybe a couple of circles. So a cell can hold an input value as well as an output value, and the output cell can then in turn become the input cell to another calculation or driving another geometry. To show you the concept, here let's set up an input cell. Let's say we have a value of 1 inch in this input cell. So I can control, for example, the length of this line. I just double click in this point to activate the length constraint, and I click on the L box, and then I click on the cell. So the length of this line will be controlled by the value of this cell. If I change the value here, the length will change. And I know that this is being controlled by this cell because if I click on this constraint point here and then I click on the letter L again, you notice there is an equal to sign here which says that it has got a formula bar constraint. This will be discussed later, but it tells me that the length is being controlled by this cell. You see, if I double click on this, it highlights the cell. I can also name this cell. I can, for example, call it ABC, and now if I go and interrogate the cell, you'll see it says ABC.value. And for example, now I can put a dimension on that geometry, and I can control the radius of this circle either by the value of this cell or the value of this dimension. So I can click on the R button and just click on the dimension. Now that circle is controlled by the dimension here, and I can calculate the radius of this circle, for example, in an output cell. Same method. The first point is a point constraint which locates the cell. Then I can click on this radius, and let's say it's the value came out here. And now let's control, for example, the radius of this circle by this output cell. Let's say it's by 2, divided by 2. So you notice the things are interchangeable. This was an input cell which controlled the value of this geometry, and then I put a dimension which in turn controlled the circle here. Then I extracted the value of this radius in a calculation cell which I use for driving this. I can also put calculations in cells. For example, I can say let's declare this to be an area, and let's calculate the area of this shape. So I just locate the cell here and click on the shape somewhere away from geometry, and it tells me the area. Now I can then label it using the text block. Oops, I made a mistake, so I can edit this. Just click on the text tool again and click inside the text and just backspace. So you can edit any text that you want. Just click the text tool again, click inside the text, and then you can change. So here's, and these point constraints allow me to constrain the location of the dimension or the cell. And now if I change the value here of the input cell, you'll notice that the length of this line will change, which in turn will change this dimension, which will change this circle, which will change the value of this cell, which is an output cell, which will change the shape of the circle, which will update the area. So now you can see how interchangeable things can be. And there's one technique that is very useful uh, because of these are all constraint points. For example, if I wanted to align things, I can just draw a vertical line here and then say constrain it to be on this line, constrain this to be on this line, and I can say flip it and constrain this to be on this line and say this one is on this line. And now this is a tip or technique. If I move this line, everything will change, and then you can just simply make this white in color so it's not visible, and you can also delete it if you want, and you can also remove a border from a cell by just clicking on it and say style none. You can change the precision of any of these things. For example, I can right mouse button click on this and again set decimal equal to 10. So this way we can have a full control on the precision and appearance. For example, if I wanted this to be bigger font, I can change the font size. I can change its color. Any entity you can select and give it. So the cell is a very powerful tool that can help you to set up the input conditions as well as get calculation results. The dimensions are measurements, and they are constrained measurements. For example, if I wanted to measure the distance from the end of this line to the center of this circle, I just put a measurement here. The third point is the measurement location. If the dimension doesn't have a point in the middle here, then it'll automatically put you don't have a control on the location of the dimension. It just goes to a standard. It depends on which side you clicked first. If you clicked on this side first, the dimension would have been on the bottom. Let's look at some of the, let me select everything. Let's look at some of the dimensions we have. So let's draw two lines, maybe a circle. So here this is a horizontal measurement. Likewise, this is the vertical measurement. And then you have a point-to-point measurement, which goes and measures the point-to-point. When you have a point here, like I mentioned before, then you can click the point to locate the dimension anywhere you want. The other one defaults to a location by itself. For circles, you just, if you want the radius only, just click on the circle and locate the dimension. If you want the dimension to measure the radius, the diameter, just click on the circle and locate the. And once again, these can be located anywhere you want. And the last one is the angle constraint. It has got two options. Let me just clear everything here. So there can be a situation when the lines are intersecting, or there can be situations when the lines are not intersecting. So when the lines are intersecting, you select this dimension here, select on the point of intersection and place the dimension. When they're not intersecting, you can select the first point, the second point, and then locate the dimension. And the dimension would then be measuring. This has got polarity. For example, if I click on this first and this second and locate it, it is measuring the other side of the dimension. And a value of a dimension then can be put into a cell, and the cell can then drive another geometry. I want to control the angle of this using this cell, and if I change this, so you get an idea. These are interchangeable elements, and the text is a useful thing to annotate things so that you can label things in there. And any element you can assign a property by just clicking on a property and say whatever the name you want to give. so that when they appear in the formula bar, you know which entity you're dealing with, because you can double click on the tag on the formula bar and it highlights the corresponding entity. Thank you.